What's up, everyone? Welcome to Level 7. It's time for another edition of the Agents of Fandom podcast. I'm joined, as always, by my good friend, the director of content and editorial here at agentsoffandom.com, Garrett Blaney. How you doing?
I'm doing good. It's early for us. This feels like a great time to be talking about stuff. I watched this episode when it came out, like at midnight, so I feel like I've been just itching to chat about it. So I'm so excited. Can't wait.
It was such a wild episode. I'm excited. My name is TJ Zwarich, your host, editor-in-chief of agentsofandom.com. I forgot to do that at the beginning. But I'm so excited to break this one down with you. We're going live a little bit earlier than usual. I'm happy that you're going to an NHL game tonight. We had to bump this a little bit earlier because Ava gets home. My wife Ava gets home in about 3 hours from a trip, and so now I'm actually going to get to just hang out with her all evening, and I haven't seen her for a while, so that's going to be nice.
It worked out perfect, yeah.
It really did, really did. Joined by a very special guest today, one of our amazing participants from Marvel Madness this year, Leah Marilla Thomas. How you doing?
Great. Knocked out in the first round, tragically.
Here's the thing, though. I was knocked out in the
Triumphantly.
first round of the first year, and then I made it to the finals of the next year. So that could be the trend.
There you go.
You could be there next year. We'll see.
So, Leah, you are a woman of many hats. You
Sure.
have been, I was gonna say quoted, but like you've written in like for some pretty big deals in terms of Cosmo, Vulture, the Mary Sue. Talk to us about what it is you do in this wonderful internet industry.
Oh, lots here and there. I'm a television critic. I also do, plenty of SEO stuff, and I try to stick to sort of fandom-y corners when I do that because it's more interesting to me. Lots of explainers. I kind of got my start at a site called Bustle, where one of my chief duties was doing Easter egg guides for all of the then Netflix Marvel shows, and that was exhaustive. And exhausting because we didn't get screeners back then, or we would get like the first half of the season, and then I'd have to get up at like 3 a.m. and watch like 5 episodes of Daredevil very quickly. Yeah,
Nice.
and then so last year I know that none of this is Star Wars related yet, but we'll get there. Last year I was a consultant on the Newcomers podcast when they covered the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So that's Lauren Lapkus and Nicole Byer are just going through things that they've never seen. So I had the lovely task of narrowing the Marvel Cinematic Universe down to 20 entries. I chose 19 films and 1 television show because I couldn't not do a TV show. And then summarizing them for them, being on hand to answer so many questions. But it ended up being really fun, and I won them over. So they started off really haters, and they ended up liking some stuff, so that was awesome.
Love it. We got some big Lauren and Nicole fans in chat right now. I want to shout out Brandon Moore, who's gifting subs in the Twitch chat. The absolute goat, and apologies to the writers in the Twitch chat right now for the lack of trigger warning prior to mentioning SEO. You know, that's
Oh,
that's
yeah.
uh, that's
Too
on
true.
us.
Too true. My apologies.
But hey, well, we're ready to talk some Star Wars and get going here. Time for the Agents of Analysis. But before we get to that, make sure you're following the Agents of Fandom on all of the socials, at Agents Fandom on Twitter, Agents of Fandom everywhere else. If you're watching us on YouTube, make sure you like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and make sure you're also subscribed to the Agents of Fandom podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. But let's talk some Star Wars, because this episode was a absolute banger. I've loved this season. Adam, one of our amazing producers who pops in from time to time, it's had its highs and lows for him. We've kind of butted heads a little bit, and I feel like Garrett's kind of in the middle. Leah, we were talking earlier, and you felt that this season maybe wasn't your favorite either. Dive into that for us.
Well, it's not my favorite, and maybe that's a little bit my fault, because it's really testing the boundaries of my Star Wars fandom, because I'm not a Clone Wars person. and I'm realizing how much I'm missing. I thought it was fine for like the first 2 seasons. First season especially, there was just a bunch of little westerns episodes, and now I am finding myself increasingly behind and just kind of along for the ride. But this week was fun. I did like this week.
And so this week kind of introduces us to a villain that us fans of the animated shows, the Rebel shows and stuff like that, are very excited to see, who was obviously introduced at Star Wars Celebration, Grand Admiral Thrawn. I'm having so much trouble with words today. Pronunciation is difficult. But make sure you check out agentsofandom.com because we have so many great news pieces from Star Wars Celebrations, all the announcements from TV and movies, everything up there. You can check it out as well. But let's dive into this episode specifically. Garrett, what did you think, and how did you think what did you think about the episode's beginning with the Shadow Council and the name drop of Grand Admiral Thrawn?
Yeah, well, so many thoughts. First, I want to say I was going to wear my Grand Admiral Thrawn sweatshirt, and my lovely partner nabbed it this morning to take to work. So she looked cuter in it anyway, so it's okay. But I was gonna rep that because I was so excited about that reveal. But yeah, the opening super sick. I think it all makes so much more sense now, and I think next week probably everything will even make more sense than it does now. But in terms of the timing and why we got kind of the ups and the downs of the story flow this season and what's going on with the New Republic and stuff like that, it all makes sense of why it was kind of ham-fisted in there. And then we get the announcement of Dave Filoni's kind of ending movie for this era, and we've all been leading up to this, and it was all worth it, to be honest with you. Like I agree with Adam in terms of this season has had for me the highest highs and the lowest lows, but it's all in the rearview mirror now because I understand that this is where we were always going, and we had to get past the roadblocks that we did in order to get here.
Still muted. Sorry about that. Things like episode 3 kind of having that random clone Dr. Pershing, Elia Kane story right in the middle. Even though it maybe wasn't delivered in the best way, we now understand like why we had to hear these things prior to this. And I want to touch on it more in a little bit, specifically with like something from that episode that bothered me that we now got clued in on in this episode. But Leah, like, what did you you feel like this episode answered some questions for you, especially kind of how it begun with Moff Gideon and the Shadow Council?
Yes, and also we have to shout out Brendel Hux.
Yes,
Daddy Hux.
Daddy Hux, played by Domhnall Gleeson's brother.
Yeah, I just found that out actually. Yeah, it's very cool.
That was
it's very exciting.
Yeah, that was an Easter egg.
And
I didn't realize.
Brendel has to be a reference to their father, right?
I
Brendan,
think so.
Brendel.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a fun little name combo there. I
That's
think that
very nice.
like I didn't realize that Easter egg was kind of a thing that they were brothers until I was on Padre Pascal last night with Rachel, and she was the one that clued me in on that, and I was like, oh, that's
Yes.
actually really cool.
They screened this episode at Star Wars Celebration, as I'm sure she talked about, and that was the only thing I knew about this episode going in, was that Brian Gleeson from Bad Sisters, if you like the ABC show Bad Sisters, he's the little detective on that, was playing Hux. Yes. So, yeah, we're learning about Gideon.
To me, I think this first intro is so, like, we all love Moff Gideon as a villain. We all love Giancarlo Esposito. He's menacing in whatever role he's in. And I think, Leah, you referenced this earlier on in terms of the more casual Star Wars fans not knowing all the kind of lore that we're getting in reference to Clone Wars and in terms of Rebels, that what better way to establish the next big bad, which is going to be Thrawn, than by having him come in and wipe out a villain that we all know and respect. and that immediately establishes depth and gravitas. And that's kind of what we get hinted at in the beginning of this entry, is that he doesn't necessarily believe in the legend of Thrawn or what he's going to do, and maybe wants to be the next heir to the Empire. So that to me was the biggest striking thing of this entry.
Which other live action show has he been mentioned in another one?
It was
Like
season
Obi-Wan?
2 of The
Okay.
Mandalorian, where like right when Ahsoka was leaving, that was
Right,
basically
right,
like
right, it was
they were
her.
sending her on
She was
like,
"Gotta
I
find
gotta
him."
go find Thrawn. Exactly.
Yeah.
And so that was the part, Garrett, and I'm gonna, when we talk about what we think is gonna happen in the next episode, I wanna really let you cook with this theory, because we talked about it yesterday and I liked it. I think that's it's gonna be a very interesting possible perspective if Thrawn comes in here and it's not the Mandalorians or someone else who saves Din from the clutches of Moff Gideon. It's actually Thrawn. But that is the thing that clued in here to me, and that was like what I needed answered. Was we figured Elia Kane's working for Moff Gideon. Like that was kind of, we assumed this. But Pershing was on that ship. If Moff Gideon is working for the Empire, why would he want to zap his brain? Like, we know this is going to be, the Empire is going to be filling in some gaps with how Palpatine returned. Where did Snoke come from? They're interested in cloning. Mm-hmm. Why are they frying his brain? And it's because Moff Gideon is not the heir to the Empire. It is Grand Admiral Thrawn. And they don't like each other. Moff Gideon doesn't like him. He doesn't trust him. He thinks it's his time right now. Whereas the rest of these officers kind of seem to be on the same page that Thrawn's time is going to be coming. And so kind of seeing that their ideal empires don't align, that was very interesting to me, because that was the question I didn't understand, was why are they frying this dude's brain? So the Shadow Council is very interesting. It obviously name dropped Thrawn. We got Papa Hux in there, and it really starts to fill in the gaps between this Mandalorian period and the sequel trilogy. Mm-hmm. But I want to kind of shift things to the Mandalorians themselves now. Rachel and I were laughing about this last night, how it's pretty hilarious that they kind of just like, yes, we got this land on Navarro. Everybody, come here. All right, we're out. Back to Mandalore. What did you think about that, Leah?
I didn't it was like, especially when you're watching early in the morning, I'm paying my best attention, and then I was like, wait, what? They're leaving? They're going to another place altogether? Okay.
And I think like this, Adam, I want to bring you in here if you don't mind, because I don't want to speak for you, but I feel like this kind of speaks to some of your points from earlier in the season of, well, if they're not doing this mission of the week to get these other Mandalorians like right at the very end before they set this up, well, they actually would have had some time to spend on Navarro and had some time to establish a storyline there.
Yeah, I think it would have been really cool if we got to see them kind of implant themselves there earlier and spend some time and do some planning. And really, and then I would never complain about getting to see more Grief Karga. And so like, we get to see more stuff like that. I just think it's just one of those things, again, to me, that I just don't really understand, like, what the need was to do it this late in the season when they really weren't even there for, like, a full episode. And then we don't even see, like, anything that they actually did there. Like, as soon as they set up shop, it's time to leave. So it's like, why did they even... I guess they needed somewhere to plan. But it just seems strange that they were just so happy to take it and set up shop there, like knowing the end game. Like, well, there's no point. Like, I was kind of expecting when he offered that to them and they accepted, like, one of them to mention, like, don't expect us to be here for long because we've got bigger plans at play and like we've got other things that we're going to need to hit. But then they just kind of didn't say anything. But I guess I get it. Maybe they didn't know. But like you said, it's just one of those things that's like, I just don't really get it because they could have easily done it earlier in the season and it would have at least made a little more sense.
And Garrett, you've theorized that one of the reasons why this probably isn't as cohesive as it could be is because this storyline is a bit of a pivot. This this was supposed to be setting up some Rangers of the New Republic, and now without Gina Carano as Cara Dune, that's not happening anymore, and they had to make some changes.
Yeah, to me, it seems more and more obvious that Gina Carano fucked everything up. Like they had a plan of they were going to introduce us to Zeb, probably even some other rebels like Hera in that show, and introduce the New Republic storyline, if I had to guess, in that show with Dr. Pershing and Elia Kane, and then everything would have connected in this season of The Mandalorian, and possibly onto Ahsoka. And the plan was to have this interweaving era, and obviously now we know it ends with this culminating movie. So when all that stuff happened, there was a pivot involved. I do believe that that's why they didn't kill her off. That's why the line said, she goes to join this other army. I think that there is a possible recast at play. But all of this, if it is the case, of course, it could be just my own, headcanon making logic because I am unimpressed by the ebbs and flows of the story. But if that were the case, I would forgive it. I think all things considered, they did a great job of meshing everything together, scrapping an entire show with multiple storylines and then including it in one B story of The Mandalorian. While it's not perfect, it works, and we're here now, and I can't wait.
In that context, the season feels like a pretty great success, right? Like when you consider like the potential challenges that they could have had, it's depending on the perspective that you want to look at it with. But I want to bring things into like maybe one of the reasons why they didn't stay there that long is something else is at play here, because this episode is titled Spies. Now, they are not in Navarro very long. They immediately head off to Mandalore to reclaim their planet. Bo-Katan gives a nice speech. Din and Grogu, they're immediately out there. They're like, bam, I'm in. Let's do this. Paz Vizsla volunteers. The Armorer volunteers. Oh my gosh, I forgot about something so important though. So before we talk about this quest to Mandalore, let's talk about IG-12, iGrogu 11, iGrogu 12, whatever you want to call him. So this is so interesting, and any chance to poke at one of Adam and my arguments I'll always take, especially that this happened fresh off the, like, can droids be alive in Star Wars? And now Grogu is in a droid corpse. Right in the middle. I do think this opens up some questionable storytelling worries of, like, slowing down or enhancing certain aspects of Grogu's development. And, like, now he's not just a little baby flopping around. Now he's not a Jedi. He might just be a mech guy for a while now. And I don't really love that. Having said this, that was the most, like, pure joy and laughter I think I have ever had while watching Star Wars, when he's just mashing the yes/no buttons. Leah, what did you think about the iGrogu 12?
Well, my first cynical thought was, oh good, another toy. And then my second cynical thought was, oh no, now the first time Grogu is speaking words, it is not his voice, it's Taika Waititi's voice. But then I was won over by the button, and I didn't care anymore. Because it's good.
Oh my gosh, it was hilarious.
And that's, like, accurate, because a toddler at a certain point says, like, those two words repeatedly, right? Yeah.
Oh,
what
yeah.
do you think, Garrett?
Yeah.
I thought it was hilarious. I was a big fan of it. I see what you're saying about hampering, maybe some developmental issues, but I don't necessarily think we have to have them in it forever. It's cute. It's cute. It gives him a good chance to bang the yes/no. We get Taika back. We'll see. We'll see how far it goes.
I'll try and drop it in the Twitch chat here, but for those of us who are listening elsewhere, friend of the Agents of Fandom, Marvel Comics writer Kelly Thompson, writer of Black Widow, Captain Marvel, It's Jeff, Hawkeye, co-creator of Jeff the Landshark, writer of Black Cloak as well. She had a really great thread about this kind of mechanized Grogu and, like, why she loved every second of what she saw, but she worried about it from, like, a story standpoint, and how she considered doing something like that with Marvel's Jeff the Landshark, and then basically kind of boiled it down to, like, once you introduce something like this, you can't really unintroduce it. It can always come back to like, well, why isn't Grogu in his little machine? Why didn't he grab that? Or type of thing. And so, but like none of that compares to just the joy and amazingness of Grogu mashing these buttons. And it also brought us a really cool moment when they start their trek to Mandalore. Axe Woves and Paz Vizsla are playing their little Mandalorian chess game, and what I loved about that is like we've all had this moment with somebody in some game before where you come from a different place and it's like you're playing cards and you're like, what? Those are your rules? Pardon me, you're playing beer pong, and it's like, what do you mean that that's 3 cups? That's obscene. You just got lucky. That type of thing. That's kind of the vibes I got with this little chess match there. But then when they start fighting, when toxic masculinity takes hold and these guys just start going at each other, Bo's not doing anything, Din's not doing anything. It's Grogu who steps in and separates them. I loved that so much. Leah, what did you think of that scene?
Yes, I'm fine that it's good. And I don't think it really he's just walking instead of floating, you know? It's not that different.
I wanted to see Axe Woves get that ass beat a little bit more. That's all I'll say. But honestly, that's only the second best thing that happened when Grogu was in iGrogu 12. Because I think Din saying this isn't doing it for me is by far the number one.
Yeah.
He's holding that little fruit away from him. He's like, this is mine now.
The Meilu run, of course. If you're a fan of Rebels, you know the Meilu run fruit very well. So I'm glad to see that that's making another appearance in live action. Super fun.
I just like Ava and I are rewatching Rebels right now. I'm rewatching it. Ava's watching it for the first time, and so we did literally just watch the Meilu Run episode where Zeb and Ezra have to team up together to go grab it. Great stuff. But they get to Mandalore. This group is together. They have their little squad that goes down. The rest is staying up in the atmosphere in the ship. They're running around. They eventually encounter more Mandalorians. Now, they don't realize that these people are potential friendlies. These potential friendlies don't realize they're other Mandalorians. This is the first people they've seen in a long time. They've been here the whole time. They've been there since the Night of the Thousand Tears. They've been there since the Purge. And so they're on their own little ship here. And that brings me to the title of this episode, because obviously so they come in, they recognize Bo-Katan, and they're like, this is royalty, like, oh my god, is it time? We're here. But the episode title is Spies. Now, this boat gets these people are like, oh, we know where the forge is. We've been here the whole time. We can take you directly to it. Who's been in the forge the whole time? It's Moff Gideon. Moff Gideon's been in the forge the whole time. He's been on Mandalore this whole damn time. And we'll get into his forces and where we think they may have came from, but looks like he's gotten some Mandalorian help. And so, who are the spies? Because Moff Gideon knew they were coming. So is it, I want to throw 3 options to you guys, and if it's somebody else, you guys can just give me an option D, but option A. Is it the Armorer? Child of the Watch, coming from Death Watch. Half this group still has Death Watch insignia all over their armor. She's got the little Darth Maul horns on her armor helmet. The exact same thing that Moff Gideon and these Mandalorian Dark Trooper has. It seems to be really setting up for that. But also that could be a red herring. That could be just what it is leading us towards. Option B, is it Axe Woves? This guy said in the very first introduction of this set of Mandalorians, his number 2 goes, oh, we are respectable Mandalorians for the right price. They said right off the bat, we can be bought. What is this fleet that they're using? It's an Imperial fleet. Yes, Bo-Katan helped them assemble it, but she doesn't necessarily know, couldn't maybe not necessarily know that it was gifted to them a little bit. Option 3, the boat Mandalorians, the land boat Mandalorians who have been there the entire time. Oh yeah, we know where the forge is. We've been here. All this land looks different, but we can take you right to it. We've never been inside before and never realized that Moff Gideon is still down there. But yeah, we could take you to it. Also seems potentially kind of obvious here. Leah, I'm going to throw it to you first. Who is the spy?
Well, I've been thinking the armorer. I don't trust her. I don't like her vibe, and I don't like the cult. And I don't want them to come out on top. A, because I think we've learned enough in Star Wars that religion and cults are not necessarily trustworthy. And B, because I would prefer to see the faces. And it's easier for me to follow the show when I can see the faces. But now I'm thinking about Axe, and that is a good point. So I would go with one of the two, but leaning towards the armorer. Because I don't like her.
Makes sense. What about you, Garrett?
All right. I think the armor. I that was my initial thought, 100%. But the more I sit, the more I cook on it, it's just too obvious. I think. I think it's not the Mandalorians that we find on Mandalore, because while it doesn't make any sense that they know exactly where the forge is, they know, like, they've been on this planet the entire time, but just have no idea of Moff Gideon's lair and army and everything. Like, I don't know. That seems a little bit sus to me. And then they crash right where they need to go. I don't know. I don't think it's them, though. I think their reasoning for being in the plot is to explain that this is not Death Watch. Because that's finally, we have the distinction of, is this Death Watch? Is this what are Children of the Watch? Is it a faction? Is it what is it? We finally have that further explained when Charles Parnell asks, like, are you guys Death Watch? What the hell's going on? We don't, obviously, if you know of Death Watch, you know the terrors that they committed to Mandalorian society, and everything adds up with them being from Concordia and everything. And then we finally get the distinction that, no, we're not Death Watch. Death Watch splintered into a bunch of warring factions, and we're kind of what came out of it, which is what I assume means that they're not the terroristic ways. And so that's kind of why I feel that they're in there. And then, yeah, the armor, I don't know. Let's not make another villainous woman here. She's been making. I think she has a good plan. She has a good outset. She's maybe a little bit sketchy in her execution and she's a little bit shady in her actions, but I think ultimately she has a good goal at mind. And I think I'm going to postulate another theory. There are two spies. One of them could be just Elia Kane from the beginning. And then the next one is just one of the Mandalorians, Axe Woves. Both the armor and Axe Woves suspiciously leave before the final battle. To bring back more help or whatever. So we'll see who ends up, bringing the cavalry and who ends up with Moff Gideon. I think it's Axe Woves, personally. Plus, I don't know, there might be, sorry, TJ, there might be some personal bias from his days as an agent of Hydra on Agents of
Simon
Shield.
Bakshi.
Yes.
Oh my god, I just put that together.
Oh, yeah.
I knew I didn't like his face.
Exactly. He's got the vibe.
Garrett said that last week, too, and I had the exact same reaction. I went, that's who he is. Thank you. And so that was so funny to see, like, that exact thought process going through your head.
Rachel's just been calling him the hot guy, and every time she says that, I'm like, I don't know.
Something's off. Yeah, I don't know. I think the only thing is, if it's Axe, I'm gonna be a little bit pissed, because it looks like from when Bo-Katan reveals the story of how she loses the Darksaber and everything, and trying to deal with Moff Gideon to save the Mandalorian race. Casca, the other Mandalorian, second in command to Axe, she knows the situation. So I assume Axe would also know the situation. So if he knows that Moff Gideon just totally fucked Bo-Katan over and still tried to commit genocide of the Mandalorians, why would he try to help him again? That's the only thing I don't understand. So I don't know. Hopefully we find out the answer to all this next week.
the right price, I guess, maybe. The other sign that points towards potentially the armorer is one thing we know about Beskar is it's not easy to forge. Sorry, Obi-Wan is running around here. He heard Beskar and he went, "Oh, I don't like that. That can fight against my lightsaber." Anyways, we know Beskar is not easy to forge. There's a reason why Din would continuously go back to the armorer over and over again to get things forged. It's a very difficult skill. And now I'm sure Moff Gideon, knowing all he knows about Mandalorian culture and with all the resources he has, access to the forge, maybe he could have figured it out. But needing somebody to teach him or needing somebody to actually do the forging of all these Beskar dark troopers is another thing that could potentially lead to the armorer. I love a theory that Britt Gorman from Streamer, she's in the chat right now in our Twitch chat. She dropped this in one of our in a Twitter chat that I'm in with her, and she said one of her theories is that it's both. It's Axe Wolves and the armorer. Neither of them know that it's each other, but both of them are actually just kind of pawns. Then their strings are getting pulled here, and so I think that would be very interesting as well. One thing that I think kind of points away from the armorer is we got a redemption arc throughout this series for this season for Paz Vizsla, and R.I.P. Paz Vizsla, taking one for the team, going out doing the classic, "You go, I'll hold them off."
And it's so sick too. Just an absolute animal. Would have made it out.
He's the guy to do it with the machine gun too, right? Like that's his thing. Obviously, leaving a son behind, that's not super great for the son. That's probably not going to be fun for him. But Paz Vizsla goes out with a honorable death. He was kind of the number 2 to the armorer here. And so for her to just kind of let him go, bye-bye, see you later, that to me goes, maybe it's not her, or maybe she just didn't care. Yeah, I know I said the honorer, everybody. And it's you, Garrett. It's you in chat making fun of me. Come on.
I don't like to do it to your face. I just do it in the chat.
I get distracted easily. Come on. And so with him off the board, and like that's kind of the next thing that this took us to is Din got captured. Moff Gideon was smacking him around. He pulling away all of his weapons, and that is the other thing I found interesting is that while he would have been able to see that weapon, the Darksaber was not on Din Djarin's person when he was stripping him of all his weapons there. How did he know Bo-Katan had it? Somebody already told him Bo-Katan has this Darksaber because he immediately knew that she had it, and it had not been presented at any point yet. So maybe that was just an assumption because he's a smart guy when he didn't see it on Din Djarin, but no, somebody told him that Bo-Katan has that Darksaber. So there's a spy in the midst, and we just don't know who it's going to be yet. We'll find out next episode, of course. And in this next episode, what do we think is going down? Garrett, this is where I want to let you cook with that theory because I liked it a lot, and I want to do the same thing. I'm going to present 3 options again. Actually, before we even get into who could potentially save him, there's been people involved in the Mandalorian project teasing after this last episode all over social media like, you guys aren't ready for this finale. Get the tears out. Like the tears are going to be coming. You're not ready for this finale. A couple years ago, Pedro Pascal was a budding star. Now Pedro Pascal is one of the most booked and busy, popular people in all of Hollywood. Bo-Katan is a character whose arc they've been setting up this entire time. 1, will something happen to Bo-Katan trying to save Din Djarin in this finale? Or 2, is it possible Din Djarin may not make it out of this finale? What do you think, Leah?
I mean, at a certain point, people are going to start making jokes about his work ethic, you know? Because he keeps picking projects that he may not live to the end of. And this one, he barely has to show his face. And it would make me sad for that reason, because I don't want people to make those mean jokes. But I don't know. Yeah, he is so famous right now. Probably going to be sexiest man alive, right? Who else could they do? Who else could it be?
The only other person
He's
it
the
maybe could have
moment.
been is no longer going to be in contention for that award. And so I think Pedro's probably got it sewn up. Um,
Right.
that's you're in a dangerous household living with Rachel to be saying things like Pedro Pascal's got a poor work ethic and
And I mean, not like jokingly, with love.
With a hug
He's
afterward.
definitely, maybe commitment issues is the better thing to say.
Classic.
Because he stays booked. Yeah,
Very
I
true.
don't know. Because wasn't there also a quote recently about how the Mandalorian doesn't have to refer to one person, or was this just a Twitter thing I saw?
no, that was kind of like the
Did
main
Filoni say that?
that was the main feature shot of the trailer this year
Okay.
was Bo-Katan going, what? Did you think your dad was the only Mandalorian? And then in reference to this storyline, Rick Famuyiwa was talking about in at Star Wars Celebration from this weekend. He was saying like this isn't just a story anymore about the Mandalorian. It's about the Mandalorians, and this season
Right.
is focusing on the rebuilding of their culture and getting back to their planet, rebuilding Mandalore. But like, Garrett, I'm going to throw it to you. What do you think? Like, could we
Well, wait.
added a second main character this season?
I'm gonna say no. I'm gonna say no very quickly. Just lay down. Does not die because being in a place where there's now weapons that can cut through his armor is just too easy.
Very fair. I
That's
saw
my
somebody
prediction.
else drop in chat earlier, like, what if they're going to be putting him in the same style of machine that they just dropped Pershing in?
Mm.
That would be a potentially scary thing as well. Garrett, we introduced another main character this season in Bo-Katan. It's no longer just Din and Grogu's story, it's Din, Bo-Katan, and Grogu's story. Was the purpose of this to give us a character we are now super attached to give a hero's ending to in the final episode? Was it to set her up as the main character for future seasons? Or are they both going to come out of this warm, not cold?
All three are coming out of this: Bo, Din, and Grogu. No shot. They just announced the culmination of this era in a movie, and Pedro Pascal is not going to be in it. You guys are tripping. You guys are tripping if you think his death is even remotely on the table. What's going to happen is
It's called anxiety,
the
Garrett.
Mandalorians are
We're
going to
all
win, and he's
diagnosed
going to be
with
able to
many
be in
mental
that
health
movie
issues.
without a helmet. That's what's going to happen. Are we going to be scared? Yes. Is he going to come out dead? Absolutely no shot. We're going to see him no helmet in the movie to end this era. That's my prediction.
How else is he gonna kiss Bo? They have to smooth.
Or Cobb.
That's what I was
Yeah,
going to say.
honestly,
is
you're right. You're right.
There's a
And
we
he's
need
gonna
Cobb.
save him.
There's going to be a that brings us to the next point of who is going to save him then if he is coming out of this alive. Layla gave her theory of it's going to be Cobb. He's going to save him. They're going to kiss. Shout out to Layla, one of the hosts of the Fandom Academy podcast, talking about this one as well. She's going to be joining us next week for the finale of The Mandalorian. We got to bring in our Mandalorian Pedro Pascal #1 fan to cover this finale with us. So she's going to be joining us for the live show next week. Cobb's going to save the day. They're going to both take off their helmets and smooch afterwards. It's going to be really nice. Smooch? Maybe smooch.
Smooch.
It's R-rated cut, they're gonna smooch. PG-13 cut, they're gonna smooch. Who's gonna save Din? If he's coming out of this alive, who's gonna save them? Is it going to be a group of Mandalorians? They're gonna defeat the spies. Bo-Katan's gonna come in, save the day. Is it going to be an exterior party? And now I have two options for this exterior party. It would make sense thematically to lead into Ahsoka. And with where we last saw Ahsoka in The Mandalorian searching for Thrawn, to wind up here somehow to save the day and be part of their squad to help them. Could it be a Jedi like Ahsoka? I don't think they would do Luke again for a second straight season finale, but could it be Ahsoka coming in? Could it be Thrawn? Not to save Din Djarin, but to say, fuck Moff Gideon. I've had enough of this dude. You're trying to run shit? Nah, you're not. This is me. I'm the heir to the Empire. And therefore, the Mandalorians just happen to get away. And they go back to Navarro in their little plot of land. Are Boba and Fennec going to come in? Are they going to come in to join a little army to rescue them? The one I think would be the coolest would be Grogu has a Dragon Ball Z moment. Grogu goes Gohan mode, and we see Grohan. And he goes Super Saiyan, you took my dad. Don't you take my dad! And starts using the Force and force throwing everybody into the wall to go get his dad back.
Yeah, that's the one. Uh-huh.
That would be so fun.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Definitely that one. No doubt in my mind.
There's a little doubt because you have a great theory. Tell me about why you think it could potentially be Grand Admiral Thrawn.
I think in a really cool, perfect world, we get to see Ahsoka and Thrawn in a little tease of their little cat and mouse game for Ahsoka. I don't think that happens. Like I hinted at the beginning of the show, I think it's a really cool way to establish dominance and to establish the power of a character like Thrawn to take out an overarching villain like Moff Gideon that we've seen, someone who's played by such a respected actor, and really just say, hey, I'm the boss now. Like, this is my show. And I think it plays out really well, too, to where this is the person of importance who can carry through the Project Necromancer of reviving Palpatine. I think we get some clues at the beginning of, the Hux is doing the cloning. That's his bag, but we know that Gideon is experimenting on cloning Jedi, and he wants to have the best of the Mandalorian Jedi and cloning species for his army. So we know that he's breaching into that territory with Dr. Pershing. However, we've seen that they've destroyed Dr. Pershing's mind. So it seems like he kind of wants to get rid of that territory and kind of scrap that research that they have. And that's kind of how we're going to get this deformed Snoke, because they don't have all the right pieces to the puzzle, and they try to play the cloning game without Pershing's research, without oh my gosh, the original cloning species who I can't remember right now.
Kaminoans?
The Kaminoans, yes.
Kaminoans, yeah.
They're going to be doing this. Yeah, I could see it too, but I couldn't think of the name. Yeah, they're going to be doing this without all the pieces to the puzzle, and that's why we're going to have maybe not so perfect Snoke, and in the end, it's going to lead to Palpatine. Like I said, this is all Dave Filoni reversing society's anger and meme moment of somehow Palpatine returned. I know it haunts him.
So Snoke is a draft one of Palpatine?
Kinda.
Like that. Now, here's if they do this, I will be upset. Because the novelization of Rise of Skywalker had such a hilarious explanation for how Palpatine returned that I'm going to be very sad if this is retconned.
Which was?
I'm going to read it to you now.
Oh, again, a direct quote.
And apologies because this language is very sexual.
Oh, no apologies. That's encouraged.
I'm being sarcastic. So the falling, dying emperor called on all the dark power of the Force to thrust his consciousness far, far away to a secret place he had been preparing. His body was dead, an empty vessel, long before it hit the bottom of the shaft, and his mind jolted to a new awareness in a new body, a painful one, a temporary one. Isn't that nuts?
And I feel like that temporary one could be Snoke.
Is Snoke, yeah, maybe.
They didn't
read the rest of the book.
They're building this, they have to build this new body for him.
And that was official Star Wars fan fiction, by the way, just to recap.
No, this is the novelization.
I know, that's so funny. Thrust, shaft,
that said
huh?
thrust and shaft
Yeah.
too many times to
Right?
not be fan fiction. I think that was some good stuff. But I think that kind of leads to this, Garrett. And I do think this could be a potentially interesting story point in season 3. And Adam just brought this up in chat. Like, Admiral Thrawn is a different type of villain. He would probably be pretty pissed off at Moff Gideon for what he's doing to Mandalorian culture. He would probably have a respect for their culture and think that what he's doing is blasphemous. So he takes him out and he knows, all right, Din Djarin, like you owe me one now. And Din just heard this story for the very first time of Bo-Katan trying to work with Moff Gideon and it not working. It's like when somebody tells you, oh, that person sucks, but you're like, I don't know, they seem pretty nice, until you get hurt yourself and then you realize, oh damn, that person was right. And I could see that happening a little bit with Din Djarin and Admiral Thrawn in the next season of like, this guy saved me. I don't have any affiliation to the New Republic versus whatever it is. Like, I'm gonna help this guy out, and Bo-Katan and maybe even Grogu and Ahsoka are going, no, dude, no. And then by the time the movie comes along, he's back on their side and he helps them take them down. I could see it going somewhere like that. I do have a hard out here in a couple minutes where I do have to thrust my way out of this stream and into another one to talk about some baseball for rotogrinders.com. So this next episode is going to be a banger. It's going to be exciting. I'm so excited. I'm hoping they're going to be exciting tears, not sad tears. I'm hoping we don't lose one of our main characters. I would love a cameo from Ahsoka, Fennec, Boba, but I don't need it. It'd be fun, but I don't need it. If a rebel shows up, I would scream and fist bump when it happens, but it's not necessary to the story, I don't think. But regardless, I think we're in for a very, very exciting final episode of this season, which we will be talking about with our own Agent Layla next week. Leah, before we get out of here, one, thank you so much for joining us. This has been so much fun. And two, where can the people find you on socials?
You can find me at Leah Marilla on Twitter, Letterboxd, others, but those are the two that I use and promote and like the most.
Love it.
Love it.
Make sure you follow Leah on all of those things. You can follow Agents of Fandom anywhere you get your socials, at Agents Fandom on Twitter, Agents of Fandom everywhere else. If you're watching us on YouTube, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, hit the notification bell. If you're listening in podcast form, make sure you leave a nice 5-star rating and written review. And check out agentsoffandom.com because we have so much great content right now covering Star Wars, but also everything else in the TV and film industry, gaming, diving into some music, diving into some sports as well. So make sure you check that out and check out the store at agentsoffandom.com where we have wonderful merch, including this hoodie that I got on right now. On behalf of myself, TJ, Garrett, my amazing co-host, Adam and Ruben behind the scenes, and our wonderful guest, Leah, thank you so much to everybody who tuned in today, and we will see you next week breaking down the finale of The Mandalorian. Peace.
Peace.
Bye.